So thanks all for standing by and welcome to today's webinar. We'll be going over Terraform Enterprise and ServiceNow integration and what that means for your DevOps workflow. Today we have Lauren Rother, who's one of the product managers for Terraform, who will be helping present and show us this demo for you all today. Please note that during the webinar, feel free to type any questions into the questions box, and we'll get to those questions at the end during our live Q&A session. This webinar is also going to be recorded, and the recording will be made available within 1 to 2 business days, and it will be sent out to all folks who have registered. All right, and then with that, I'd like to hand over to Lauren. Lauren will provide any other additional forms to get in contact with her for any follow-up questions or feedback. And with that, let's get started, Lauren.
Awesome, thanks, Caroline. So, as Caroline said, I'm Lauren Rother. I'm a product manager for Terraform here at HashiCorp. My pronouns are she and her, and you can find me at GitHub on my incredibly creative username, which is listed here, and also on LinkedIn. So today we're going to cover why we built this integration and who we built it for. We're also going to go through a demo of how to set up the integration from scratch, and then also how it works when ordering infrastructure. I'll also take some time at the end to talk a little bit about what we are looking at doing next for the integration, and then take questions. So why did we build this integration, and who did we build it for? It's a really excellent question, and I'm so glad that you asked. If you're familiar at all with Terraform, you know that Terraform provides a foundation for cloud infrastructure automation using infrastructure as code for provisioning and compliance in the cloud operating model. One of our big goals is to accelerate infrastructure provisioning at scale while keeping true to infrastructure as code. But how do you do that? My primary focus at HashiCorp is to investigate the ways that Terraform can be self-service. When you're a really small company with just a few people learning and using Terraform, collaboration is pretty easy. But once you get to the point where you have one team or just a few people on a team dedicated to pushing Terraform out to hundreds or thousands of developers at your company and working to get Terraform accepted across other business units, life gets a little tricky. And this is the point when self-service becomes really crucial. Our goals when we're thinking about Terraform self-service are increasing productivity, reducing risk, giving everyone at your company the benefits of Terraform without having to teach everyone how to use Terraform, or possibly even worse, trying to add everyone to your Terraform repos and manage their user rights. There were a lot of places we could have started, but ServiceNow is a really clear choice. We heard over and over again from our users that their companies were using ServiceNow and expected them to use it in their workflow, but it left them in this really difficult position where they would receive tons of requests for infrastructure from their other teams via ServiceNow, and then they would need to then go and build that infrastructure using Terraform and then return to the ServiceNow ticket with the information on how to access what they just created. And we know that ServiceNow is a really powerful system. We wanted to find a way to work within it and make everybody's lives easier and scalable and more secure. It's a lot of copying and pasting. So if you give me just a moment to fumble around my screen here, make sure I'm logged in, we'll get to the demo. So before we get to the installation part, there's a few things I've already set up that you're going to need to have set up for your integration to work. And I want to call those out so you're not like, why? Where did this come from? I have a Terraform Enterprise organization set up for this. It's called Lauren Test. You can see that right here. This organization is already connected to my VCS, which in this case is going to be my personal GitHub account. I already have an OAuth token ID established for Terraform for my VCS. I've already set up a team API token so that ServiceNow can communicate with Terraform. And I also have an authorization token in GitHub so that I could ingress the integration in the studio, in the ServiceNow studio, without messing with my two-factor authentication, because that is not fun. And finally, I also have admin access in ServiceNow, which is required to set up and customize the integration. So this screen, if you've used ServiceNow, should look pretty familiar. This is a completely brand new ServiceNow developer instance. I just reset it today. It's a really plain standard ServiceNow instance running London. We've also tested this on Madrid. The integration is actually packaged in a zip as a series of Git files. So I've put those in a private Git repo. in my GitHub, and then I'm going to like pull those in to ServiceNow. And in order to do that, we're going to go to the studio. So because this is a really brand new instance, I'm going to get this handy screen asking me to load my application and import it from source control, which is what I'm going to choose. If you already have things set up, this might not be the screen that you get. You might need to click around to add a new application. So I'm going to be copying and pasting from somewhere else. This is the URL to where my integration files live, my username, which handy, my computer remembers, and the authentication token that I talked about before. This, if you are doing this, you will just be giving it whatever information you need to connect to your VCS in whatever environment you have set up. So now we're going to wait for it to ingress all files. It loves to sit at 87%. I don't know why. There we go. So now I'm going to select the application, and I'm going to choose Terraform. It's the only one there, pretty easy. And this is our entire integration. Very exciting. So for the purposes of this demo, I'm actually going to set the worker poll run state. This is going to run every 5 seconds. That just kind of makes things during this demo go a little bit faster. Set it periodically, 5 seconds, update. You may not want to do this. You're going to want to set this time and the runtime based on how much traffic you expect, what works best for your organization, how your network is set up, that kind of thing. When we're in this studio screen, this is really the point when customization can come in for the integration. We really made this integration a bare bones standard application that's meant to allow you to customize everything to fit your existing workflow, because we know that every ServiceNow workflow is different because every company is set up slightly differently and needs different things. So if we look at the workflow dropdown, which you're going to have to excuse me for just a second while I find it, because it's always a little bit, I always miss it. You'd think it'd be so easy. There we go, workflow. So in this workflow section, you can see all of the different pieces that you can customize. And we're going to look at provision resources because that's the first thing we're going to run. Oh, it's opened up a whole new window that you can't see. Fun. Forgot about that. Well, let's see if I can do something a little. Nope, that's not it. Will it let me select this? I'm going to try one thing to see if I can show you this, and if I can't, we'll just move on. Yes, the magic of the internet. So if you've done workflows in ServiceNow, this should be pretty familiar to you. This is just the workflow of what's happening when you provision resources with our integration. Obviously, if you have sign-offs or other items that need to happen, you can add them all here. So I'm going to go back. I'm going to close this actually. Go back to the studio. Another thing, when I'm going to be showing you at some point how to provision with variables. When you go to do that, you can add any Terraform Enterprise variable or environment variable that's available here just by clicking new and adding it in and giving it a prompt for your user. You can find a list of all of our variables and environment variables on terraform.io in the docs. You can also, one last thing, specify what options your users can see from the service catalog. So if I click into Terraform catalog here and scroll down, you can see that we've broken out every Terraform operation into discrete units so that you can customize stuff for sign-offs. If, for instance, you want someone to create a workspace first and then get someone to sign off on the creation of that workspace and then run through plan and apply, you can separate those out. You can also rename them if workspace doesn't make sense to anyone. You can change that. For the purposes of this demo, I'm going to actually just show the 2 provisioning options. And we can take these away with deactivate, and you'll see what that looks like in just a second. So let's flip back to our main screen. just because internet, we're going to refresh the page so that Terraform shows up when I type it in. And there it is. This is where our integration is living. So now we need to, I've started so that we can find it. And now we need to connect ServiceNow with our Terraform instance. And we're going to do that via the config page. I'm going to click a new config. This is where I get to put in the team token that I mentioned I generated in Terraform Enterprise. This is where, if you're shrewd, you're noticing I'm using a special instance of Terraform Cloud, which is why it's app.terraform.io, but this is where you would put the directions to where your enterprise instance is living. And also I'm inputting my org name. And click and submit. I get to reset all these fun numbers when we're done here. So, generally don't show people this information if you can. And then we're going to connect our VCS repo. And this is really where the meat of our integration comes in. So this is where we're going to input all of the information our users are going to select. This is where every Terraform configuration that we've set up in advance gets input into ServiceNow Service Catalog so that someone can pick it. So for me, I just have one that I'm going to show you to make it easier. And I was going to set it up so that it would show an AWS instance, but my internet went out today, which is really fun. So in the name file, we're going to put the name of the application or infrastructure that we want our users to pick. So mine is going to be a random generator of pet names and adjectives, but this is where you would put, for instance, like Java app with MySQL database on AWS, or if you have specific names for different teams, this is where you could put those in and even put version numbers, and someone would end up choosing this from a dropdown, which I will show you in a second. And here, I'm going to, this is where it's going to be pulling from. I'll come back to that in a second. I want to put the location of my repository in this identifier, and then I'm going to put my authorization token in here. Great. Now we just have one less step to finish the integration, and that is we need to add a catalog item. So we're going to go down to catalogs, right? And I'm going to star that actually so I can find it again quickly. I'm going to click this add content, and here is the Terraform catalog, and I'm going to add it to the top. And now we get to pretend that we're app developers who need the pet app and try ordering infrastructure, or in this case, random pet names. So I'm going to go to Provision Resources. Provision Resources is going to run the workspace creation, the plan, and the apply all at once. So this, if I had other options, would be where I would choose them from. I can describe why I need this. And I click Order Now. So as an app developer, I can click into my ticket without leaving ServiceNow, and I can watch as Terraform goes through the stages. I don't need to have access to Terraform personally. I don't need to have a login. I can just see where the status of my request is as we're going through it. So now we're at provisioning resources. I think it says, yeah, it has the planning and then planning and applying. There was also a Sentinel check in there, which I will show you in a moment when we pretend to be administrators rather than developers. And there we are. I get my known cattle, which is my pet app, and I can move along with my day. I didn't have to leave ServiceNow. It's all in the ticket. Now, if I'm an administrator, Terraform administrator, I can come here and see that there's a new workspace. I can click on it. In this information, I see that it was created via this ticket. If I click on this, it'll bring me directly there. So if something went wrong or I'm actually going to destroy this because they picked the wrong thing, I can let them know. And I can click into the workspace and see what happened with the plan, what policies were applied to it and whether they passed, and also what the output of the apply was. So now I will show you really quickly what this looks like when you request it with request to provision infrastructure with a variable. So we saw before it spit out about 2 names. So let's see. We're going to have it do 5 and see what that looks like. I'm going to click order now. I'm going to wait. Now, I wanted to take a second and show you what it would look like if you had to manually apply. So I could do a thing where it doesn't automatically go all the way through. And in this case, I would be able to see, okay, it's coming from this ticket. I'm going to queue the plan. And if we're back in this ticket, it should show up here too. There we go. Sorry, takes just a second. There we go. And it's running the apply. Oh, I have to click into this ticket. That'd be helpful, huh? And we got ourselves a Meerkat. So that in its entirety is our integration. Obviously, you would be using much more complicated Terraform configuration than a name generator for animals, but this is what it looks like and how it's customized. One of the things we know right now that it doesn't do, so some of the stuff that's coming up, deleting, at the moment you have to manually, as a Terraform administrator, run a delete in order to delete the workspace. We are going to add a delete item to the catalog next. It's our next plan, so that you don't have to do it by hand because that's awful. Someone can let you know when they're done and request that it be turned down. We also are looking into time to live so that if you want to set time limits on how long some infrastructure can stay up, let's say you have a policy of 30 days or 60 days or something like that, you can set that. And then the next thing that we're interested in really is change requests. What happens, this is all great on day 1, but what happens on day 2 when someone wants to maybe order a second, the same thing but second, or maybe they want to add more storage. How did they go into that? We don't have a good answer for that right now. And we would actually, because there are so many different ways that you could request changes, we would love to hear from you. If you're using this and you have users that would want to come back and change things, please let us know what that is, because we would love to find out what the best thing to work on next would be for this. So with that, let's see. If you're interested in using this integration, you need to contact your TAM or your SE so that you can get access. You can check out the docs that we have on getting started with our ServiceNow integration. They are right here. And if you have any feedback or additional questions that don't get answered today, I'm really happy to hear from you. You can email me. It's pretty straightforward, lauren@hashicorp.com. And with that, I'm pretty happy to take questions.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Lauren. So at this time, we can move into our live Q&A section. We've had a few questions populated already, so I will tee those up and ask those live. Just give me 1 second. Okay, so first question we have, I think this was from the initial part of the demo. Where do we get the integration files that you import from source control?
Yeah, that's a really great question. Because it's our first round of integration, we're going to have that running through your TAM or your SE, and they will give you the Git files that you can then host in a Git repo.
Okay, great. Another question we have, is there a way to estimate / show costs, and will the TFE cost estimation functionality be supported in this integration?
Oh, that's such a great question. That's an amazing question. So yes, the cost estimation is still in beta right now, I believe. I think the GA happens in this next release of Terraform Enterprise. I have to double check that. But yes, as soon as it's available, cost estimation should work just straightforwardly, because all like Sentinel checks, anything that would happen here in cost estimation can be pulled into Sentinel, would run through here. So yeah, it should work with cost estimation, which means that if, for instance, someone is requesting infrastructure and the variables they've plugged in would cost you more than you've set your limits for, this would reject.
Okay, great. We have another question around Sentinel policy check. So will ServiceNow show Sentinel policy check fails?
Yeah, so if this didn't go through, the plan would stall out, and you would see that in here. Now, I wouldn't necessarily know why. I would need to end up contacting you to figure it out. That's probably for the best, because you don't necessarily want everyone to know exactly what policies are running per se. But yes, they'll be able to see that it failed and get in touch with the administrator and ask why and follow up.
Okay, awesome. Hope that answers the question for the individual who's asking. Next question, can you set a more meaningful workspace than the ServiceNow Request ID?
That's a really great question. At the moment, no, we have it just clicking to the ticket number, but that would be a really excellent feature for us to add. If you'd be interested in that, you should definitely email me. I'm gonna keep my email address up there. You should email me with what you would want to see there and how you would want to customize it. The more information we get on how you're using it, the better we can upgrade it. So yeah, at the moment, no, but it could happen in the future.
Okay, great. And then when you run against the same VCS repo multiple times, it creates a separate workspace for each run, which is great, but how do you manage changes for each individual workspace?
Yeah, legit. So at the moment, because each ticket is its own workspace, there aren't changes on a workspace. The way that you could change a workspace is if you decided that you wanted to change your main Terraform config. Let's say a new policy came through and you had to change the backend that you were using. You could update your Terraform config. I like that I'm pointing as though anyone can see anything that I'm pointing at. You could change the information here in your Terraform config. What that would do, though, is whatever workspaces you still have up would all get updated with that change. Now, that could be great depending on how it works for you and how many you have open and whether you wanted that to happen to everybody. We understand as part of building this like day 2 option that we need to make a better and a little more elegant solution for that. But yeah, at the moment, you can't really manage change for each individual workspace. You have to do it at the config level.
Okay, great. We have another question around which providers does this work with, and will custom providers be supported?
Oh, really great question. Yeah, actually, it works with all of our providers. And I have actually not tested it with custom providers, but given that it's basically just pulling your repo, if you have custom providers set up and you're using them right now, like if you're able to just set up a workspace and use custom providers, you should absolutely be able to do it with the ServiceNow integration. You just have to make sure that both your VCS and Terraform know about them, right? That you have them set up correctly so they're pulling from the correct place. And then yes, it'll totally work.
Okay, great. Let's see, we have a few more questions here. How would or could you present options to the user? Maybe through variables, but as an example, option of provision in US East 1 versus US West 1.
Yeah, that's a really great question too. So, okay, you can set that there. Oh, I'm back here again, trying to find the right thing. Here we are, workspace variables. Why is this so hard for me to see? I don't know, every time. So there's a Terraform environment variable, I believe, that you can use to specify that specifically. I don't know what it is off the top of my head. I'd have to look it up in the docs. But you would add that here in this section. And then what it would do is it would show up. So I only have, as you've noticed, 2 workspace variables here. But if you added a third one, if I just, sorry, I'm just going to make one up just to show you that it works. Wow, slow. Sorry, my ServiceNow instance is a little slow. But basically, if I add one here, it's going to show up down here. So that's how you would do it. If this, there we are. Question. This is the, how do I want to phrase this? Yeah, we can do region. So this is obviously not going to work. It's not going to work as a real thing because I did not put in the correct Terraform environment variable, but this is mostly just a proof of concept. There we are, region. Now, granted, this is set up as like a, I enter it here. You could make it a drop down, right? So that they select rather than like have to enter US East 1. But that is specific to ServiceNow, and I haven't messed with that too much myself, but these will all give you the option to do that. That was a great question.
Great. Sorry, we're just getting a few, so I'm trying to peruse through these. What backend is currently being used? Can you pull down the plan outside of the ticket?
Can I pull down on the what outside of the ticket?
Can you pull down the plan outside of the ticket?
Oh, I mean, yeah, I could. So like outside of the, okay, so the ticket only focuses on like this one workspace and this one request. I, as a Terraform administrator, could easily come in and do whatever I wanted back here. And the, you know, it would just mess with whatever I'd set up. It would not update the ticket with that. Well, actually, I wonder. I'm gonna try it. I haven't actually run another apply. All right, we're trying it. That's amazing. It's funny that I hadn't thought to do that before, but there we are. So I'm just running this. It's not going to give me anything super exciting, but I am curious if it will update this ticket again. Yeah, I didn't think that it would because the request didn't originate from ServiceNow, so it's not listening for an answer. It's not going to update anything in this ticket. That is, if that would be super useful to you, if you would want to be able to go in after the fact and change things on the workspace and have it update the specific ticket that created the workspace, let me know. I'd be very curious what your workflow is looking like that you would want to do that.
Okay, great. Let's just get through a couple more of these, and then I think Megan Lease wanted to hop on and answer a few other questions at the end. We have a question around, right now I'm trying to get ServiceNow to edit a config file on my VCS to apply on Terraform. I'm trying to use JSON format. So the question is it possible to make Terraform read a main JSON instead of main.tf?
That is a really good question that I would need to go ask my team. I'm not actually sure. But that's really great. If you will email me that question, the person who asked it, do so, and then I can actually get back to you with an answer when I find out what it is.
Okay, great.
Sorry, yeah, I don't know off the top of my head.
No, that's totally okay. That's why we put the forum for contact and follow-up questions out there. Can you set this up to use multiple cloud service accounts if you have a ServiceNow work request for different environments.
Yeah, you 100% can.
Okay, awesome. And then I believe you may have addressed this, but just for other folks who were unsure, is there a free trial or playground available for this integration for practice?
Sadly, not at the moment. Yeah, maybe in the future, if we get interest in there, it's possible. I think, yeah, we really want to be able to give it first class support, which is why we're running it with Terraform Enterprise right now.
Okay, and then as a Terraform admin, how are state files handled between ServiceNow and Terraform? And can I inject state files into existing tickets?
Yeah, as far as I know, and I will fully double check this because I know state file is very tricky, ServiceNow does not know about the state file. Like ServiceNow is basically making API calls out to Terraform and then getting like information back, and that's it. Like it doesn't know about the state file. It doesn't have access to it. Yeah, I will double check on that. And so if you want to email me if you have security concerns, do, and I will give you the full thumbs up from the team. But yeah, it doesn't know about the state files, as far as I know, because that would be not good.
Great. And then there's a few questions at the end. Megan, if you're there, if you could unmute and turn on your webcam, we can address some of these.
Hi, Caroline. I was addressing them in the chat, so they're more specific individual questions.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think one of the common ones was about pricing, and so those are more specific. And in general, if you want to understand pricing better, you can contact us at HashiCorp, and we'll work with you and one of your sales teams. And then the other question was about availability in Terraform Cloud Free Tier, and it's not currently available there.
Yep.
Okay, great. Thanks, Megan. Awesome. So yeah, we definitely got through a lot of those questions. If there were some that we didn't get to, or you had follow-up questions, feel free to follow up with Lauren directly at our email. But again, I just wanted to say thank you, Lauren, and thanks to the audience for joining this webinar. Overall, great questions and live Q&A. I hope everyone enjoyed today's webinar and has a better understanding of the integration between Terraform Enterprise and ServiceNow. Again, if you don't have Terraform Enterprise currently and are interested in using the integration, you can reach out to a sales rep directly at HashiCorp.com, and there should be a contact sales form on our website. And then finally, as I mentioned at the beginning of this webinar, it will be recorded and we will be making it available after a couple of days of processing. And this email will go out to everyone who registered for the webinar. Thank you so much, everyone, and have a great day.
Thanks.